Babe, what do you think of American tipping culture?
Are you smiling? You think I'm going to give you like some bad answer? Okay, look, it's very, very controversial, right? The tippers don't like the tip in general. The tippies want you to tip, right? So I don't think it's just as simple as like, should you tip them? Do they deserve it? No. I think, and if you're trying to compare it to Western Europe, right? Like, right? Where we travel, tipping is not required. And some places it's actually like an insult if you tip someone. They get upset, right? So I think the real reason, what people need to understand in this is the nature of the two economic, like social economic situations, right? In America, I mean, come on, like we don't have universal healthcare. We don't have social safety nets like Europe does, right? So you gotta pay people a decent wage because they gotta take care of all that on their own. There's no government, there's no universal healthcare. Now in Europe, right, a lot of the service industry, like, let's call it restaurants, right? Primarily, that's where the, tipping happens, right? They get paid better. There's no question. I've seen data. They get paid better on a comparative basis. That means like, how much does €1 take you in Spain versus $1 take you in Los Angeles, right? Your euro goes further there. Higher, you have your standard of living isn't so expensive. And you get paid better, and you have universal healthcare. So tipping's not really needed, that it's not part of their culture. Whereas here, I see the issue, like, I see it. I see why you got to tip them. I have a comment about how the tips are calculated, but I see that it's different here. People don't make enough money in the service industry just to pay their bills because our government doesn't cover our healthcare and other social safety net programs. There isn't anything. You're on your own, right? So, I guess my answer is, it makes sense here. It's justified.
What about the iPad that you get at
Well, that's my next, thanks for saying that, because that's my next thing. Okay, so my personal opinion, not fact-based or anything, this is my opinion. I don't necessarily believe it's right to tip people based on the dollar value of your check. Let me give you my example, my contrarian example, right? You go to a mom and pop, family-owned business. They serve you. You sit down in their restaurant, they serve you, your check's like $100 for 2 people. Not exorbitant, not cheap, but not exorbitant, right? You tip 20% of the check. Now, you go to a crazy-ass expensive restaurant where the bill for 2 people is $500, right? The level of service to me in that little mom and pop and the level of service you get there, right, is pretty much the same. But you got to pay 5 times more in tip. Yeah, the food's better, the ambiance, the venue, silverware, tablecloth, everything better. But to me, the human service, you go to a mom and pop where the daughter or the son comes out and serves you and be really nice to you and be really cordial, versus, a Michelin star restaurant, whatever it is, an expensive one. The service is the same. Why do you have to, there has to be a different formula. You can't be based on the check alone. Now, I get it. If you base it on the check, if there's a lot of people, that means the server has to do more work. Right? 6 people. But 6 people or more, they already do what? It's included, right? So I think there's a little weird space there where it's like, just because the check is a lot more expensive, if the service isn't included in there, there's not that many people. I don't necessarily agree you tip based upon the value of the check.
What about tipping at like self-service?
That's a tough one because...
Like you go to the froyo place, you get your own frozen yogurt, and the iPad says 20%.
Yeah, well... The iPad's saying that, the application is saying that. That's a tough one. Because sometimes, like, you don't know how much they're... Yeah, but sometimes also you don't know, right? It falls back to my first point about, like, maybe they're not making enough to get their health care.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe you have to help them out. They're not providing you a service. I think that's completely, to me, that's completely on the customer. It's how good a heart you want. If you feel you want to give them something for serving you that way, go ahead. But if you don't, you don't. To me, it is because they should, they want to go make bigger tips. Technically, those people should, it should be reserved for those who actually provide you the service.
Right.
That's my take on it.